Oh, hello. Today it's time for our Warpcovern Kill Team Faction Review. Let's go. So the Warpcovern has Recon and Security, which, no Seek and Destroy, which, if you've been watching all these as they come out, you know that I really like Seek and Destroy in this edition of Kill Team, but Recon is still got a way to reward killing, so that's fine. They are a 6-model team, generally speaking, although you can flex into goats if that's what you want to do. So you've got your Sorcerer of Destiny, your Sorcerer of Tempyrion, and your Sorcerer of Warpfire. You will take all 3 of these, once each. You can nominate one to be your leader, and he then gains +1 wound, which is nice. Rubric Marine Gunners, you can take 2. You can either have 2 with Warp Flamers, or 1 with a Warp Flamer and 1 with a Soul Reaper Cannon. Basically, you want to take 1 with a Warp Flamer and 1 with a Soul Reaper Cannon, and then if you're playing Into the Dark, perhaps you swap out your Soul Reaper Cannon for a second Warp Flamer. That's up to you. It's a pretty close thing. Then you've got the option of a Rubric Marine Icon Bearer and a Rubric Marine Warrior for filling up your last slot if you're running the 6-man elite team. I actually prefer the Rubric Marine Warrior. He's been given an extra little ability that we'll look at in a little bit, which I think edges him out over the Icon Bearer. Then you've got an assortment of Tzaangor. So the way the Tzaangor work is each Tzaangor is worth half a slot. So if you were going to run Tzaangor, I think you'd run 6 Tzaangor and 3 Sorcerers. I think that's the way you'd do it, right? Tzaangor Champion, so you can have 1 Tzaangor Champion, and he can have a Great Axe or a Great Blade. If you wanted to run Tzaangor, I think you're going for the Great Blade, I think is what I said. You can take a Horn Bearer, he's pretty good. You can take an Icon Bearer, he's pretty rubbish. And you take Warriors. I like the Auto Pistols and the Chainswords on the Warriors, I think. But probably you're not running Tzaangor, right? With your Sorcerers, they come with a package of weapons. So they come with their Psychic weapons on the data card, and they come with a Force Stave. You can choose to give them an Inferno Bolt pistol, or a Prospering Khopesh, or a Warp Flame pistol. You can only give out 1 Warp Flame pistol. We'll go through that when we go through the different Sorcerer data sheets. And that's basically it. I think the build is 6, like I said, 3 Sorcerers, 2 Gunners, and a Warrior. I think that's what you're going to do. I don't think you can ignore the goats, and it makes your life a little bit easier if you ignore the goats as well. So, Boons. So this is the big faction rule for Warpcovern, and it is a big rule. There was a lot of effort to get it onto one slide. Boons are not the same as Angels of Death traits, because you don't have to do any nonsense with keeping them the same for every round of a tournament or anything like that. You much like the Chaos Legionaries, you can change up your Boons for every game as and when you want. And I think I'm going to read through them. And I've put some that jump out to me next to the Sorcerer's data cards when we go through the data cards. But actually, I think a lot of the skill with this team is where you're going to be deeply knowledgeable about the team you're playing against, the kind of map you're on, and things like that. And you're going to be flexible with your Boons. Boons don't have to be modelled on, so you just change up your Boons as and when you like every single game until you find the combination of Boons that work well with you. Your Sorcerers each get a boon. You can't duplicate boons across your Sorcerers. Yeah, so we'll start with Incorporeal Sight. The empiric energies given off by living creatures can be sensed by the Sorcerers of the Thousand Suns. This operative range weapons have the Saturate weapon rule, and whenever this operative is shooting, enemy operatives cannot be obscured. Bonkers good, right? Especially against Night Lords, said the person who's currently running Night Lords. Like, oh, yeah, you could just turn off obscuring. I mean, it gives you the tools to deal with that. I think it's really, really good. I think you're going to be taking that quite a lot, especially on Volcus. Obviously, it's going to be less useful on Into the Dark and Better Decima, which has slightly different rules, potentially, unless you're playing against Night Lords, and then you're always taking it, right? But I think it's really good. Time Walk. Time Walk. There are few greater boons than mastery over time itself. Add +1 to the operative move stat. I think So we see this a lot, right? You got Slanesh Marines can have +1 move. Now you've got kind of a sorcerer with +1 inch movement. Your sorcerers all have infinite range weapons. So I don't know. Like, it's fine. I don't think it's something you're going to go for very often. Echoes from the Warp. An ability to predict the future allows for stronger responses to enemy movement. Once per battle, when you counteract with this operative, you can change its order, and it can perform an additional 1 AP action for free during that counteraction, but both actions must be different. So, I mean, this is really strong, really, really strong, but it's once per battle. I think this is one that you've got a piece of equipment we'll get into later that will let you have an extra boon for 1 turn. Since this is once per battle, I think this is an obvious choice for that piece of equipment, rather than for something that you have on one of your sorcerers and then use once and they don't have a buff, right? Warp Swell. An influx of warp power grants impetus to melee strikes. Add 1 to the damage stat to the normal damage stat of this operative's melee weapons. Meh. Your sorcerers want to be shooting at range and buffing most of the time. Like they can fight, they're not bad in a fight, but this doesn't jump out at me a really good one. But it's there. Mutant Appendage. Horrific though they may appear, additional limbs are useful indeed. Having an enemy operative with this operative's control range does not prevent it from performing the pickup marker or mission actions. Once per activation, this operative can perform the pickup marker, place marker, or mission action for 1 less AP. This is like really good, but also not. In the old edition of Kill Team, which was far more about objectives and mission markers and actions, it was like an auto take. Now I think you can do without it, because I think you're trying to focus on being killing. But again, that equipment piece that I mentioned that lets you flex into a single boon for 1 turn, maybe you flex into Mutant Appendage in Turning Point 4 if you can see that actually this is going to let you scrape out the win. Immaterial Flight. The power of flight renders the recipient highly elusive. So now we're going to read the suffering, which is the fact that they decided not to make fly like a core rule where they could use the keyword. So let's, Once per turning point, when this operative is performing the charge or reposition action during its activation, it can fly. If it does, don't move it. Instead, remove it from the kill zone and then set it back up wholly within a distance equal to its move stat of the original location, measuring the horizontal distance only. In a kill zone that uses the close quarters rules, this distance cannot be measured over or through wall terrain, and that operative cannot be set up on the other side of an access point. Note that it gains no additional distance when performing the charge action. It must be set up in a location it can be placed. Unless it's a charge action, it can't be set up within control range of an enemy operative. Again, you don't really want to get closer with your sorcerers. Fly is powerful. It is. And you could maybe use it to fly up to the double vantage point in Volcus. There are definitely use cases for it. But you want to keep your sorcerers and your your rubrics kind of together, and your sorcerers don't need to sort of charge up the field. So as ridiculous as it feels to say, oh, you don't always want to take this, I don't think you always want to take this. Again, like Mutant Appendage, I think in the previous edition of the game, where getting to objectives was a highly important thing, this was more relevant. Whereas now it's really good, and it seems insane to say it. Maybe I am being really stupid. I don't think you want Immaterial Flight every game. Twist of Fate. What greater boon than the ability to bend one's fate to one's own will? The operative psychic ranged weapons have piercing crits. Yeah, brilliant. Piercing crits 1. Amazing. Good. Take it. It makes you more killy, and killing is what we're doing. Astral Bombardment. The truly blessed drink deeply of the warp's entropic power, wielding its destructive energies with abandon. Select one of its operative's ranged, psychic ranged weapons. That weapon has the devastating 1-weapon rule. If you select a Doom Bolt, it has the 2-inch devastating 2-weapon rule instead of devastating 2. So yeah, I actually really like this one as well. The combo with Doom Bolt against Horde teams, like 2-inch devastating 2 is pretty flippin' good if you're playing against like a Vet Guard, like a 14-man team with 7 wounds, like, yes. But giving any of your other psychic ranged weapons just devastating 2 is also really good. Devastating 2 is a really nice rule. So yeah, really cool. Master of the Immaterium. The gift of forbidden knowledge grants the recipient terrible psychic power. Add 3 to the distance requirements of the operative's psychic actions that have a distance requirement. There's just one of the sorcerers on this on which this is really, really good, and I'll point it out when we get there. Okay. But yeah, Boons. And like I said before, I think a lot of the skill of the team is going to be about knowing when to flex your Boons. Yeah. You also have Astartes, and you must have the most batshit broken version of Astartes. So, one of my bugbears, as we've been reviewing all the Marines, has been that this rule is different in every version of the Marine team. And, yeah, for whatever reason, Warpcovern just have the most batshit crazy version. So, during each friendly Warpcovern heretic Astartes opposite activation, it can perform 2 shoot actions or 2 fight actions. No limit of list of the weapons that it can use, right? If it's 2 shoot actions and a Soul Reaper cannon or a Warp Flamer is selected for both, 1 additional AP must be spent for the second action, so they do have to pay that tax, the same as Angels of Death have to. And you can't select the same psychic ranged weapon more than once per activation, but that does imply that you can use it on psychic ranged weapons. So, yeah, it's nuts. I don't actually know how powerful or broken it is. What annoys me is the inconsistency. So, Legionaries and Night Lords can't double tap a heavy bolter with the bolter discipline type rule. But Thousand Suns can just do it with a Flamer or a Soul Reaper cannon or a Psychic Power. Like, what? What? Fine. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Strategic Ploys. Ethereal Warding. The sorcerers of the Thousand Suns ward their warriors with spells, shielding them with a barrier of empiric force. Whenever an operative is shooting a friendly Warpcovern operative, worsen the X of the piercing weapon rule by 1, if any. Note that piercing 1 will therefore be ignored. Banana's good. Banana's good, right? So, if you watch my Legionaries video, Nurgle Legionaries can get access to this ability as well, and it was good enough to make me go consider, like, oh, what if you ran all Nurgle and were just really hard to kill? Guess what? Tzaangor can be harder to kill than Nurgle pretty well, because not only do you have this, but half your team can have a 2+ save as well. There's not a lot of piercing to it in the game. Eldar, right, have a bit. Melter guns exist, right? But in general, most things are piercing 1. I mean, against Angels of Death, it's just really funny, because Angels of Death thing is like, oh yeah, we have piercing 1 on nearly all of our guns. It's like, no, you don't. I've turned it off. Get bent. Yes, really, really powerful. Really, really powerful. Continuing the theme of being really powerful, fate itself is my weapon. By manipulating the schemes of fate, a sorcerer may stay the blade of a foe, or ensure their own warriors land a killing strike. Roll 2d6 and reserve them. In the following firefight phase, whenever an operative is shooting, fighting, or retaliating, after your opponent rolls their attack dice, but before re-rolls, you can use one of your reserved dice to replace one of the d6 rolls for that sequence, either yours or your opponent's. That replacement dice cannot be changed or re-rolled, and is discarded at the end of that sequence. Then if the combined result was both reserved dice was less than 9, discard the other dice. You cannot use more than one reserved dice per sequence. Discard any remaining reserved dice at the end of the turning point. Right, so this is really good. You can use it to sub in like a 1 or a 2 into an opponent's roll, or a 5 or a 6 into one of your rolls, right? Really good. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, really like that. Amazing. Brotherhood of Sorcerers. By forming covens bound by blood and magic, the sorcerers of the Thousand Suns greatly increase the potency of their psychic powers. Friendly Warpcovern sorcerer operative psychic weapons have the balanced weapon rule, or ceaseless instead, if another friendly Warpcovern sorcerer operative is within 9 of that operative. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Not as good as the first 2, and you are going to be a very CP hungry team. And unlike Night Lords, Legionaries, and Angels of Death, the one thing this team lacks because it would be broken if it had it, right? But the one team this thing lacks is it's not got a way of generating extra CP or getting free ploys. So just bear that in mind. But this is good. It's a really good ploy. But you just can't afford it necessarily alongside the other two all the time. Your third one is Savage Herd. It's about goats. I mean, I'll read it. Though bestial of form, Tzaangor possess great cunning to match their savagery, particularly when fighting in the presence of a powerful sorcerer. Friendly Warpcovern Tzaangor operatives' melee weapons have the accurate one special rule. Whenever a friendly Warpcovern Tzaangor operative is assisted by a friendly Warpcovern operative or is fighting while visible to within 6 inches of a friendly Warpcovern Sorcerer operative, that friendly Warpcovern Tzaangor operative's melee weapons also have the severe weapon rule. It's pretty situational and it involves goats and you haven't got any CP and so we're just going to ignore it. Right. I will say, one thing I try and do when I'm reviewing the strategy ploys, in the scouting step now you have the ability to say that your scouting action is going to be a free strategy ploy. You've got 2 really good options for turning point 1 strategy ploys. You could turn on Ethereal Warding so that you have it just in case your opponent gets a shot, right? If you're playing against someone who plays like Zimbad, he strains every sinew to get shots in turning point 1. He hates a turning point 1 where nobody takes any damage, whereas I don't mind that, right? But so Ethereal Warding, really good, right? Have it for free in the scouting phase, why not? Or Fate itself is our weapon. Again, your opponent's probably, depending on how your opponent plays, they're probably going to try and do something in turning point 1. So having that ability up, those dice up, like, you kind of want that every turn. And so getting it for free in turning point 1 is a really good use of scouting. The problem is it's such a good thing that it does make you slightly predictable in terms of the bluffing game of, like, who's going to try and get, if you're trying to steal the initiative, what are they going to pick, that side of things, but I'll take that. I'll take that for the free CP on a team that's otherwise going to be very, very CP hungry, I feel. Right. FireFight Ploys. FireFight Ploys. All is dust. Use this FireFight ploy when a attack dice inflicts normal damage on a friendly Warpcovern Rubric Marine operative. The attack dice inflicts 1 damage instead. Oh, it's really good. You probably want to try and keep a CP back for this just to protect your 3 little rubrics that you've got walking around. Now, it's worth saying they do have a 2-up save, right? So, if you can spend a CP to turn damage to a 1, or you can spend a CP, it's whether you want to take the gamble. You can spend a CP to re-roll the 2-up armor save and not take any damage, or do this. Now, it's worth saying that you can do both, so if you're being shot by a melter gun, right, that's AP2, you can have your 2-up save to get rid of one of the dice, and then you can use all his dust to affect one of the other dice, and you're probably going to survive a melter shot to the face, which is pretty funny. Capricious Plan. Sorcerers dart from skirmish to firefight in the furtherance of their unnoble schemes, their goals and ambitions indecipherable to even the most insightful of foes. Use this firefight ploy at the end of a friendly Warpcovern Sorcerer operative's activation. That friendly operative can immediately perform a free dash action, even if it's performed an action that prevents it from performing the dash action. Or you can change its order. This is really good. I just worry that you're going to be struggling for CP. So it's this kind of situational, like, oh, can I get an extra dash? You're really going to have to weigh that up a lot with the amount of CP you want to spend in the strategy phase, plus keep 1 back for all his dust, right? Psychic Cabal. Pooling their power, a coven of sorcerers may share their learnings, rendering their psychic powers even more deadly. Use this firefight ploy when a friendly Warpcovern Sorcerer operative is activated. Select one other friendly Warpcovern Sorcerer operative visible to him within 9 of that operative. Then select one of that other friendly operative psychic actions or psychic ranged weapons for that first friendly operative to have until the end of its activation. Really good. Lets you double up on your most useful psychic abilities for that matchup for a CP. Again, it's just the thing of, I think you're going to be struggling for CP. But it's still, it's really good. Really, really good. And then finally got Mutant Herd, which is the goat one. Tzaangor herds share an instinctive understanding, coordinating their attacks with eerie precision. Use this FireFight ploy when a friendly Warpcovern Tzaangor operative is activated. Select one other ready friendly Warpcovern Tzaangor operative visible to him within 2 of it to activate at the same time. Complete their activations action by action in any order. Like, it's pretty good, but I just don't... Personally, I don't think you're running these with Tzaangors, so... But if you want to try that, and you want to explore that, these are the tools that you have available to you, okay? Let's look at the Sorcerer of Destiny. So, APL 3, a 6-inch move, a 3-up save, and 14 wounds. So he has Doom Bolt, which is 4 dice, hit on 3s, 4/4, Psychic, Devastating 2, and Lethal 5-up. So a powerful gun. It just has a powerful old gun, right? I like to give him Incorporeal Sight, right? Which is the ranged weapons have Saturate and enemy operatives can't be obscured, just to give his Doom Bolt that extra hit of, you're going to be able to try and snipe people in turn 1. I think they're safe with this, and do a fair old chunk of damage to them. I think that's pretty cool. Against Hordes, though, you might flex into Astral Bombardment that gives you Devastating 2 with a 2-inch range. That's an option as well, okay? Weapon-wise, because... let's read his Psychic abilities first. So for 1 AP, Protected by Fate, Psychic. Select one friendly Warpcovern operative visible to this operative. Until the start of this operative's next activation, until it's incapacitated, or until this action is performed again by a friendly operative, whichever comes first. Whenever an operative is shooting that selected operative, you can reroll any of your defense dice. So... a really good buff for one of your models that can reroll any of your defense dice. Like, amazing. An amazing buff. Ravage Destiny, 1 AP, Psychic. Select one enemy operative visible to him within 9 inches of this operative until the start of this operative's next activation, until it's incapacitated, or until the action is performed again by a friendly operative, whichever comes first. Whenever the enemy operative is shooting, fighting, or retaliating, your opponent must reroll their attack dice roll to 6. Whenever determining control of a marker, treat that enemy's APL as 1 lower. This isn't a change to its APL stat. Again, a really good debuff. So, because he has a good shot for 1 AP, a good buff for 1 AP, and a good debuff for 1 AP, and you might find yourself needing to move to use one of those things, I don't think giving him a bolt pistol or a warp flame pistol is particularly useful. Even though, with only 1 ranged attack, if you did want to shoot twice, you can't, right? So, it's up to you. You can give them the bolt pistol as insurance against that one thing that comes up where it's like, actually, I just need to put out as much damage as possible this turn. I don't want to use Protected by Fate. I don't want to use Ravage Destiny. I want to move and double shoot. Go for the bolt pistol or go for the warp flame pistol, and you can Doom bolt pistol or Doom bolt warp flame pistol. I don't know if I rate the warp flame pistol. Like, the game wants me to take the warp flame pistol because it's like, oh yes, you can only have one of these per team, and I'm like, that's cool. But the bolt pistol is 3/4 damage, range 8, piercing 1. There's a piece of equipment that we're going to get to. Let's just quickly. It's sorcered rounds, so your Inferno Bolt Pistols have Devastating 1. You're always going to take that. So let's just bake that in to our thinking. Range 8, Piercing 1, Devastating 1 versus Range 6, Piercing 1, Torrent 1, with an extra point of with an extra point of hit and 1 less point of crit. Like, I think the Bolt Pistol's possibly better. Again, the Warp Flame Pistol is probably better on Into the Dark, where it has lethal 5-up. And against Horde teams, like, honestly, I think you want to magnetize your Sorcerers and only take the Warp Flame Pistol when you're on Into the Dark. Is where I'm coming from this. So, possibly it's the Bolt Pistol. I've written on the slide the Kopesh. I'm going backwards and forwards in my own mind now, right? Because, yeah, it's not often he's going to want that second shot. But do you want the flexibility of having a second weapon that you can do a second shot with? Maybe you do. Kobash is a good melee weapon, though. Like, you know, it gives you an extra dice over your force stave and lethal 5-up. It's going to make him really good in combat if he gets there. He doesn't want to be in combat, but your opponent might want to be in combat with him. I really think, and I'm going to say this a lot, I think you need to play with these and determine what you want to run them with. And it's kind of annoying because, unlike the boons you can change, you don't need to represent them on the model. The pistols and the Kobashes, you do need to represent them on the model. I really think, if you've been following this channel for a while, you know I kind of did a proof of concept thing with my Howling Banshees, where I magnetised the leader with all the different weapons. I think you want to magnetise your sorcerers so that you've got the option of changing around between your bolt pistols, your warp flame pistols, your force staves, your Kobashes. Sorcerer of Tempyrion. So the Sorcerer of Tempyrion is kind of a buff piece. So he can have a Flux Blast. He has a Flux Blast. He does not. Oh, sorry, I should have said, I like the Sorcerer of Destiny best. I think I'm going to give him my +1 wound. Being a leader is not really a big deal, because Headhunter and that isn't in the game, so yeah, I give him my +1 wound. Right, back to the Sorcerer of Tempyrion. So the Sorcerer of Tempyrion is healing your models, and he's got a blast bolt pistol, effectively. So the Flux Blast it's the same stats as a bolt pistol, and then it's 4, 3+, 3/4. It is infinite range, and it's got blast 2 and rending, effectively. And he has a teleport and a heal. So let's read the teleport and the heal. Reconstitution Ritual, Psychic, select one friendly Warpcovern operative visible to within 6 of this operative. That operative regains up to 2d3 lost wounds. Really good. Temporal Flux, Psychic, select one friendly Warpcovern operative visible to and within 6 of this operative, and place your Temporal Flux marker within that operative's control range. At the end of that operative's next activation, if it hasn't been incapacitated and is still wholly within 6 of your Temporal Flux marker, remove the operative from the kill zone and set it back up in a location it can be placed. When it's sent back up, it must have your Temporal Flux marker within its control range or as close as possible. Then remove your Temporal Flux marker from the kill zone. If the operative isn't wholly within 6 of your Temporal Flux marker, remove that marker from the kill zone. So this is like a little snapback teleport that it has, right? So you could put it on your Reaper cannon or your Warp Flamer, and you can use it to come round and then like pop back for free behind cover. Bit fiddly to use well, but still kind of cool. The Reconstitution Ritual's great. It's a heal. Amazing. I like Master of the Immaterial with him, just to give you the extra 3-up distance, primarily on the heal, right? So you got a 9-inch heal. I think that's really good. And you also have 9-inch on the cast of the Temporal Flux, which is also pretty good. It's going to make it easier to set up, and it's going to be easier to have him. You know, if you wanted to heal one guy and put Temporal Flux down next to another guy, it's just going to make him that much easier to use. So I like Master of the Immaterium on him. Bolt pistols. Bolt pistol, he needs one because if he's playing against elites that therefore isn't going to care that much about the blast 2, assuming they don't cluster up for him, there's going to be times when a bolt pistol is going to be better than the Flux Blast. Or the Warp Flame pistol. I still don't know. Like, I think this is, again, a case of, like, the Bolt pistol, and then maybe on Into the Dark, when you want to take a Warp Flame pistol, this is one of the guys that you heavily consider carrying a Warp Flame pistol. I think that's basically what it boils down to. But, yeah, again, your Inferno Bolt pistol, you can choose it twice. You're moving up, using him as a medic, using him to get his ability. If you see somewhere where the Flux Blast is going to do better than the Bolt pistol, of course, you use it. But I think he's generally a bolt pistol guy. Yeah. And then you've got the Sorcerer of Warpfire. So he has 2 psychic weapons, and he can use both of them, right? Because of the way a Stardust works. He can't use them any one twice, but he can do 2 shoot actions. So he can do Mind Burn, then Firestorm. So Mind Burn is 5 dice hitting off 4s, 1/1. Psychic Lethal, 5-up, Saturate, Seek, and Mind Burn. So, it ignores terrain when it's thinking about who it can shoot, which is pretty funny. Mind Burn. In the Resolve Attack dice step, if you inflict damage with any critical successes, The operative this weapon is being used against gains one of your mind burn tokens, if it doesn't already have one, until the end of its next activation, until it's incapacitated, or until a friendly operative uses the weapon again, whichever comes first. Whenever an operative has one of your mind burn tokens, worsen the hit stats of its weapons by 1. That's pretty cool, right? Then you've got Firestorm, 5 attacks, hitting on 4, 2, 3, Psychic, Saturate, Seek Light, Torrent 2. So if you've got enemies got a Psyker up on a vantage point on Vulcus, the vantage points are all light. So this is one of the few models that can he really seems to have a hatred for snipers. Which is pretty cool because he makes them worse at shooting. And then also he's got a pretty solid attack that can just hit them even if they're concealed up on their light terrain. So that's really good. He's also got this ability, a light, 1 AP, psychic. Select one enemy operative visible to this operative until the start of the operative's next activation, until incapacitated, or until the action is performed again by a friendly operative. That enemy operative gains one of your light tokens. It doesn't already have one. Whenever a friendly Warpcovern operative is shooting, fighting, or retaliating against an enemy operative that has one of your light tokens, the friendly operative weapons have Relentless. That's pretty cool if you really want to bring somebody down. I'd probably be using that on somebody different to the person I'm targeting with my ranged attacks, because I'm probably using my ranged attacks to winkle out like a sniper or someone else where I'm really getting benefit from the Seek, right? Whereas a light, I'll alight someone else if I can, so that my opponent can, so my other guys can shoot the other person who probably wasn't a valid target for them because of they don't have Seek, right? Okay. His weapon choice. He has 2 ranged attacks, right? So, probably a Kopesh. But then, there are definitely going to be times when you don't want to do your 5 dice 1/1 mind burn. What you want to do is shoot the fool in front of you with a Warp Flame pistol or an Inferno Bolt pistol. It's tempting to give him the Warp Flame pistol just because he's the Warpfire guy and it's funny. I think the Inferno Bolt pistol might be better. Again, I'm going to advocate for magnets just because I want to. I'd want to play the game with these, with the different pistols, and feel out what was better and what. Like, oh, I wish I had this there, and I wish I had that there. My feeling might be it's 3 bolt pistols. But I don't know. 3 bolt pistols and then 1 Warp Flame pistol on Into the Dark. Probably on the Tempyrion. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Equipment-wise, I think the equipment's a sad one because it's plastic, so people are going to have built their models in a certain way and be like, well, I'm taking what I've built, right? Unless you invest in holsters, I guess. Yeah, now it gets simpler. Gunner. So with the Gunner, you can take 1 Soul Reaper Cannon, and I think you generally will, right? So the Soul Reaper Cannon on its focused attack is 5 dice, hitting on 3 is 4/5 piercing, 1 really good weapon. And then you can do a sweeping attack where you lose 1 of your dice and you gain Torrent 1, if that's what you want to do. You take a second Gunner with a Warp Flamer, right? 4 dice, hitting on 2s, 4/4, range 8, saturate, piercing 1, Torrent 2. Really good. I think with both of these operatives, remember that you can fight twice when you have 3 APL to do so. So you also have Sorcerer's Automata. Whenever this operative is activated, subtract 1 from its APL stat until the end of the activation unless you've got a friendly Warpcovern Sorcerer within 9. So this is why you want to keep your Sorcerers reasonably nearby. 9's a big long way, right? But you want to keep them reasonably nearby so that you don't lose an APL on your Rubrics. Like I've said already, I think the play is a Soul Reaper Cannon and a Warp Flamer, and then on Into the Dark, probably you go double Warp Flamer. Really good, though. Really, really good. Icon Bearer. So the Icon Bearer has the Inferno Bolt Gun, which is a great weapon. It's a bolter with piercing 1. He has the same Sorcerer's Automata rule, and then he has the Icon Bearer rule. Whenever determining control of a marker, treat the operative's APL stat as 1 higher. This isn't a change to its APL, so any changes are cumulative. He feels like the obvious choice once you've got your 3 Sorcerers, 2 Gunners, and then you go, oh, an Icon Bearer. Actually wouldn't bother. I actually think you're better off with the Warrior. So the Warrior's the same. He loses the Icon Bearer ability, the +1 APL on the objective, but he gains Slow and Purposeful. Whenever he's shooting, if he hasn't performed the charge or the reposition action during the activation, or if it's a counter action, its ranged weapons have Ceaseless. You're not restricted from performing those actions after shooting, so you can shoot then reposition. It's not always going to come up. You know, your opponent's not always going to let you shoot them without moving first. But I think as a situational buff, more useful potentially than the +1 APL for scoring objectives would be. Just my view. So I think you basically go for your 3 sorcerers, 2 gunners, and a warrior every time. We're talking about the bird goats. I don't rate the bird goats. The bird goats nevertheless exist, and you can take 2 for the price of 1 marine, right? So APL 2, 6-inch move, a 5-up save, and 10 wounds. This particular bird goat has your choice of a great axe or a great blade. I think you go for the great axe. I think brutal is better than rending. It's the only difference between them. They're basically the same weapon. Yep. And then you've got Savage Brutality. The first time he performs the fight action during each of his activations, if it isn't incapacitated, you can perform a free fight action afterwards, which is pretty cool. Like, he's a pretty cool guy. Okay. He's just got 10 wounds and a 5-up save. And I'm not feeling it. But he's pretty cool. Probably the first Tzaangor you take is the Tzaangor champion. The Tzaangor Hornbearer. If you're taking a lot of Tzaangor, I'd take the Hornbearer, right? So, until the ready step of the next strategy phase, I'd want the move of friendly Warpcovern Tzaangor operatives, and it's free. Only Tzaangor have +1. So if you're running like 6 Tzaangor, 3 Sorcerers, if you're trying that, you want the Tzaangor Hornbearer, because then all your Tzaangor are a bit faster, and that's pretty cool. But what does he actually do? He's a piece of equipment, right? He gives you the +1-inch movement, and then he just has a pathetic dagger that's 4 attacks on force 3/5, and it's like, cool, I guess. And I've only got 9 wounds. Pathetic dagger. Yeah, if you're taking 6 or more goats, then one of them should be a Hornbearer probably. But like, if you're taking 2 or 3 goats, or 2 or 4 goats, just don't bother. I wouldn't thought. Never bother with the Icon Bearer. I don't know. So same pathetic dagger profile. If an attack dice inflicts damage of 3 or more on a friendly Warpcovern Tzaangor operative visible to within 3 of this operative, subtract 1 from the damage. But you have to be within 3. It's quite good, but you have to be within 3. They'll just shoot the banner, surely. I suppose he is a friendly Warpcovern Tzaangor operative visible to within 3 of himself, so that's nice. And then the Icon Bearer rule, where you count an APL as 1 higher, but he's an APL 2 model anyway, so he's going to be like, oh, I was good at holding this objective as a Marine. No. And he has a pathetic dagger. The Warrior, I think, is a bit better. So, they're quite cool. They can have an auto pistol and a chainsword, a Tzaangor blade and shield, or Tzaangor blades. So, if you go for the blades, you get 4/5 and balanced. Okay, which is good. If you go for the shield, you're 3/4, but you have a 4-up save, and when you're fighting or retaliating, you can block 2 dice, which is pretty cool. Or you can go for the chainsword, which is 4/5 balanced, 4/5 not balanced, but instead of balanced on the blades, you gain a whole ass auto pistol with no range limit. And of course, with this piece of equipment that we're going to talk about, this also applies to your auto pistols. So if you go in full Tzaangor, you're still going to take this, and your auto pistols are going to get Devastating 1. So you've got 4 dice sitting on 4s, 2, 3, Devastating 1. Infinite range. Is that going to be a typo? It's weird, but yeah, I guess you take warriors if you're taking them, and you go for the chainsword and the auto pistol. I guess that's what you do. And then they've also got relic hunters. Once per turning point, 1 friendly Warpcovern Tzaangor operative can perform a pickup marker, place mission marker or mission action for 1 less AP. If that friendly operative is within your opponent's territory, that's okay. That's okay. But, yeah. Equipment. The equipment's all really, really good. Ensorcelled rounds. The placing of hexes and casting of dark magics enhance the lethality of auto pistol and bolt rounds. Friendly Warpcovern operatives, Inferno bolt guns, Inferno bolt pistols, and auto pistols have Devastating 1. Yes. I mean, this is why it's so hard to justify taking the little hand flamer and not just taking 3 bolt pistols on your sorcerers, because they have Devastating 1 as well as all the other things they have. And then you've got your warrior that you've got, which has a bolter, which is Devastating 1. Yeah, take that every time. Demon More weapons. The weapons of the Rubric have been warped by millennia spent immersed in the Imperium. Demonic maws erupt around gun muzzles and their razor beaks serving as effective melee weapons. Add 1 attack to the attack stat of friendly Warpcovern Rubric Marine operatives' melee weapons whenever a friendly Warpcovern Rubric Marine operative is retaliating. Its melee weapons have accurate 1. Yeah, it's affecting all 3 of your models. They don't want to be in combat, but they're probably going to be in combat. Take it. An extra dice on attack is mad. Take it. Take it, take it, take it, take it, take it. Next. Arcane Robes. Powerful defensive wards in the Sorcerer's Cloaks allow them to deflect attacks, absorbing the force of the most powerful strikes. Whenever an attack dice would inflict critical damage on a friendly Warpcovern Sorcerer operative, you can choose for that attack dice to inflict normal damage instead. You can't use this rule for each friendly Warpcovern Sorcerer operative more than once per turning point. So you can use it for all 3 of your Sorcerers every turning point. It's going to keep them alive for longer. They're really good. It's really good. You probably want to take that as well. Yeah. Sorcerer Scrolls. Rare and dangerous scrolls from the Vaults of Prospero allow the Sorcerers to besiege Tzeangor for even greater power. So, once per battle, when a friendly Warpcovern Sorcerer is activated or counteracts, you can select 1 additional boon of Tzeangor for it to have until the end of the turning point, but it cannot be the same boon of Tzeangor that it or any other friendly operative has. This takes precedence over the normal boon of Tzeangor rules. Note that if you use this rule when a friendly operative counteracts, and you select Echo from the Warp, it can immediately change its operative's order and perform a free action during that counteraction. So, yeah, like I said, Echoes from the Warp is possibly like the default pick with this, because you can only use it once per battle anyway. So now instead of using it 1 of your boon slots on it, you're just having it for free when you want it the one time during the game. So that's really good. Otherwise, I could see going into Mutant Appendage or Immaterial Flight in turning point 4. If you've got a Sorcerer left alive and you look at the balance of the points and you're like, oh, right, it's very, very close. If I just had this, if I just do this, I'll be able to squeeze out the win. Your mileage may vary, but I think it's really good as well. They're all so good. I think that's the one that you drop if you really, really want to take some universal equipment. It's so hard, because if you're on Better Decima, or those ladders, you probably really want them. Barricades, you probably really want them. It's tough. It's tough. You do have the scouting option to get a 5th equipment piece if you want it, but remember, we also said how useful it was to use that scouting option to get effectively a free CP in turning point 1. So, really hard. Really, really hard, because it's so good. And certainly, going all 4 faction equipment is not a wrong choice. Like, unlike the Chaos Space Marines, unlike the Night Lords, potentially, I think this is the one with the strongest equipment roster where you just go, yeah, these every game, then that's probably fine. Tac Ops. So, unlike all the Marine teams we've reviewed so far, these don't have Seek and Destroy. Sadly. But what you're going to do is you're going to go Reform, you're going to take Confirm Kill. So, Confirm Kill. The first time an enemy operative is incapacitated is when you reveal it. Whenever an enemy operative is incapacitated, before it's removed from the kill zone, place 1 of your Confirm Kill mission markers within its control range. So, it could be an inch towards you, right? That's pretty good. Because it's not wholly within. And remember, the Confirm Kill mission marker is the 20 mil, and then from that you have another inch to actually control it, so it can get quite far back towards you. At the end of each turning point after the first, if a friendly operative controls 1 of your Confirm Kill mission markers, that marker is not contested by enemy operatives, and no enemy operatives are within that friendly operative's control range, you can remove the mission marker to score 1 VP, or 2 VP if it was placed for an enemy operative with a wound stat of 12 or more. You can score a maximum of 2 VP from this op per turning point. So, really good in a number of ways. It guides you towards doing more killing on a team where you're in a game where you generally want to be killing if possible, right? You're Marines, so you're good at killing, right? You can be working towards this in turning point 1 because you'll be killing people and getting to drop their markers in turning point 1, even if you can't pick up the markers and score it in turning point 1. And you don't have to spend an AP to pick up the marker. You just do it. It's not a pick-up action. You just remove it and score the points. Really good Tac Op. So you take that one probably. Obviously the others are there. You can experiment with them, blah, 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 blah. But I think you're probably going to go for confirm kill. Here's a sample list, which I don't know. Sorcerer and Destiny, Incorporeal Sight, Kopesh, leader. I might give him a pistol, actually. I've thought about it again, right. Sorcerer of Tempyrion, Master of the Immaterium, Bolt Pistol, yep. Sorcerer of Warpfire, Twist of Fate. I've said Warp Flame Pistol. I think I'd give him a Bolt Pistol, and I think on Into the Dark, I'd flex the Sorcerer of Tempyrion to actually have the Warp Flame Pistol, I think is what I'd do. But I'd really, if I was going to play the team, I'd really want to play it and see and refine and see, which is why, for the 4th or 5th time I'm saying it, I'd want to magnetize, because I can't tell until I've played with them what you're going to want in terms of your Kopeshes, your Bolt Pistols, and your Warp Flame Pistols. You're going to want a gunner with a Soul Reaper cannon, which if you're playing Gallow Dark, you'll swap out for a second Warp Flamer. You want a gunner with a Warp Flamer and a warrior. I think that's basically how you play every game. And I think you don't bother with goats. Buying the team, you're going to have to buy yourself a box of Rubric Marines and a box of Sorcerers for 80 quid. If you want goats, you then got the added cost of £34 for a box of goats, and then £9.50 for the chainswords and auto pistols, which is daylight robbery, right? So if you wanted absolutely every option, it would cost you £123.50. If you just want to play the elite team, it's 80 with Games Workshop prices. Obviously cheaper in Element Games. Use my affiliate link down below. Final thoughts. I think this is probably the best Marine team, and therefore possibly the best team in the game right now, because elites are really good. These are the best elites, therefore. However, it's a very expensive investment, 80 quid, right? And then we know they're only going to be classified for 1 year, and then they're going to be less useful to you, and you might be saying, but Phil, I'm not a tournament player, but you should be. Everybody should go to tournaments. I keep banging the drum. They're great fun. So I think, honestly, for me, I know people, Oro and Zimba both have Thousand Suns teams. I'm going to leave them to enjoy their Thousand Suns teams. I'm not going to chase the meta and try and go into, because by the time I bought them, built them, and painted them, how much am I going to get to play with them before they get declassified? Because this is a team that takes me a long time to hobby up as well, right? As much as it would be a cool project, just because it has that time limit hanging over it, I just can't pull the trigger on this one myself. I'd love to hear your Sorcerer builds. I think options and combinations of which Sorcerer with which boon and which weapon is the little bit of interesting little strategy in list building to this team. I feel like the other 3 operatives are pretty nailed on, right? You're taking the warrior and the 2 gunners, and you're taking a warp flamer and a heavy gun, except when you want 2 warp flamers on Into the Dark. And what's nice is you get loads of warp flamers in the Thousand Suns, the basic rubric box, because in 40k the whole squad can have warp flamers, so you've got the bits to build that spare second warp flamer, because you've got 9 rubrics in that box and you only need 3, so that's good. But yeah, I think you want to magnetize for the 9th time saying your Sorcerer weapon arms. Phobos next, and that will finish off all the Marines with all the elites then. So then we'll move on and we'll talk about something else. And I want to say thank you to all of my members, subscribers and supporters. And I want to say a little apology. I'm quite sniffy and I keep rubbing my nose. I've just got a bit of a head cold, but I wanted to get the video out for you anyway. So I hope that you've enjoyed that. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend. Have a great rest of your weekend, whatever you are doing. And I'll see you again for the next video. Cheery, 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 bye. Bye-bye.